All right, you're good.
Okay, we will call an actual meeting of the select board to order to approve some warrants, and we have a quorum. And so we have two warrants this afternoon. The first is the general fund warrant, $90,101.32. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Another second. Second. Thank you. And I don't have any comments. I didn't count.
I didn't either.
We didn't count, so
The cost of doing business.
it's the cost of doing business, but you know, we've got a lot of important stuff on here, so. All right, since there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye. And secondly, we have a water department warrant that I will move for $41,302.87. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. And if there is no further business, I would move that we adjourn.
Good.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Select board meeting adjourned. Now we're gonna sign the warrants, and then we're gonna do a work session.
Reason because there is also a disbursement warrant for the.
Oh, shoot. Let's try it this way. Well, you guys probably can't see, but you have hard copies anyways.
Karen, you said there's.
There should be three. There should be the two, the water, the general fund, and the disbursement. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go you. Thank you. Thank you too.
And now we will call. Thank you very much. The select board work session to order. The first item on the agenda, question with the CEO about potential license changes.
First, to me, just speak up because I don't hear very well to begin with, and I can't hear all in my right ear right now, so. Sorry, Derek, sorry, this is the only time we could do this.
I know. I'm just messing with it.
All right,
Till I wake up tomorrow with a Hunter virus or whatever it is, you got that norovirus, I don't know what it is.
so, okay, yeah, more virus, that's not a good one.
No.
All right. So. In your, those are out of order slightly. So if you just want to start with, well, let's just go back up to the top.
8.1,
No,
no,
should be, first thing of substance would be in the land use table, article 5.4.
Page 29,
Yep.
at the bottom.
oh, do I have that one? I might not have that one. No, I mean for here, I don't think I scanned that one.
Got it.
Uh-oh.
My copy, what was that here?
I don't have, well, I scanned what I thought he was presenting, but I don't have page 29.
Okay, so page 29.
All right, so for now, you'll just go to this.
Derek, I can make a copy.
I want to scan it, so I throw it up on the screen, but. 29, yeah, okay, I don't have some of those pages, that's fine.
Okay, so we went round and round about this when the aquaculture. You know, periodically, when I was sitting up here and even downstairs, you periodically get a call from somebody wanting to come to a select board meeting, present a aquaculture moratorium for the town of Castine. So I looked at our zoning ordinance, and largely, we don't really allow aquaculture, but there is a gap in the zoning ordinance, and that's Ram Island, Holbrook Island, and what's the third island over there? No,
But
it's
that's
not,
Brooksville.
that's Brooksville. Town of Castine owns 3 islands. The town owns 1. The state owns Holbrook, and then the third is privately owned. Now, this was never a big deal, because nobody was planning on aquaculture until we found out that the state had advertised Castine as a possible place for aquaculture. This is about a year ago. It came out in this website. It was an economic development. There was a push out of Augusta to develop aquaculture in the state of Maine as an economic driver. And lo and behold, Castine was on there as a possibility. So I looked at the zoning ordinance again, and right now we allow, with planning board approval, aquaculture in the Maritime Activity District, which is just down there. And it goes from basically the academy to Eaton's boatyard. We're not doing aquaculture there because you just can't. You'd have to move all the, we'd have to move everything out of the way. We just couldn't. But then the shoreline overlay. And that's interesting because our zoning ordinance ends at the high water mark. We have no authority past that. So if a property owner were to want to do aquaculture and not have a deleterious impact upon neighbors through their riparian rights, they could possibly do it. And resource protection overlay, again, that's a gap. So it could conceivably take place. That's really beyond this discussion, though. I changed this back before I printed it because the planning board didn't feel like they would be getting out over their ski tips if they recommended something to the select board before we got into the comp plan implementation. So this is going to wait. I'm just wanting you all to know that there's a gap there. It is a very slim chance that anybody's going to try to come into Castine and with a large aquaculture outfit to try to do something. But there is interest in Augusta to push this as an economic driver along the coast. And again, they didn't tell anybody about it when they were sending this stuff out to companies to say, hey, here's a list of places that might be good for you. We never heard about it except through one of those fancy aquaculture outfits that said, do you know you're on this list? And we're like, oh, we had no idea. So anyway, it is a very slim chance, but for your all's awareness, it is something to keep your eye on, that whether or not Castine wants to go to an aquaculture moratorium as part of the comp plan implementation. Keep it in the back of your mind. Thank you for meeting with me. I'm sorry I didn't lead in with that. I want to go through the logic train behind all this stuff before the first time you see it when the planning board recommends it to you. Okay. They're meeting on the 18th to have a public hearing where then they'll develop the recommendation saying, say, select board, put this on the warrant for this upcoming town meeting. Okay, we can now go down to page 34.
Can I ask you one question?
You can ask me as many questions as you like.
So if we could back up a second, so you're recommending that that no action be taken?
On aquaculture?
Yeah, because the comprehensive plan is getting underway and to have, why wouldn't we have this settled early?
Well,
so that there's no confusion when implementation might happen.
I guess it would be, there's a movement in the comp plan to develop more off-neck economic activity. There is it's kind of a thread through a lot of that thing. Okay, and by the same token, you're gonna say, well, we want that economic activity, but not that economic activity. So, and that might be where the town's at, and that's fine. But my point being is you got multiple listening sessions, multiple public hearings that'll be attached to that implementation committee, which then should draw back to the zoning ordinance, and maybe you want to make sure that you've got a sense of where the town's at with that before you present to the town, hey,
Sure.
we're gonna do a moratorium,
Makes sense.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, so this is just cleaning up some verbiage. The way it has been interpreted in this town, and this is the setbacks in the commercial district, the way it's been interpreted in this town going back at least 20 years, probably further, where it was, the footnote said, used to say 10 feet or no less than the abutting property with the least setback. And the way that was interpreted is if we had an old building that was 19 inches off of a property line, then the abutting property could build to 19 inches on every one of their property lines. That was the way it was applied for the first 4 or 5 years I was here, and I was like, wait a second, that's not really the intent of setbacks. The intent would be, because if you think about that, if a property builds had a old structure that was 19 inches off the property line, and then the next abutter builds to 19 inches off of their property line, then you have a cascading, moving setback all the way through the commercial district. And so we just changed that to say 10 feet or no less than the abutting property owner, a property with the least setback. This setback reduction only applies to the side of the lot with the abutter encroachment. That way, if somebody's 19 inches, you can build 19 inches, and that's where it ends. Okay?
Behind you can.
Not on every lot line. So again, that's just kind of cleaning this thing up a little bit. Okay, the next.
So page 54.
Yeah. You can scroll fast. You can go through your papers faster than I can scroll. Especially not without my glasses on.
Jeez. Assuming it's number 9 that you're changing.
Okay, page 54. Again, this is just happy glad puppy to small dog. We're just adding landscaping signs because they are one of the contractors you see with the most signs out here, and people will quickly complain about signs that are not picked up. But landscapers should be in the same vein as general contractors, you know, anybody that puts their little signs out. So I just added landscapers there. Okay, the next one, and that's going down to 6.33, page 58, number 5. So this is a substantive change. So the part of the LD 2003 fallout was that accessory dwelling units are now allowed. We always allowed them, but now you can have higher density in the high density growth areas of Castine, et cetera, et cetera. There are a good amount of on-net, our high density growth area in Castine is on-net Castine, and there's a good amount of on-net Castine that if we were to see a 3 accessory dwelling unit project come in portions of the Village 1, Village 2, and Village 3 areas, our sewer and our water systems can't handle that. If they were going to put 3 more units on, say, Latour Street, Medaka-Wando, portions of Perkins, we can't handle it. So this is simply an add-on that does comport with the law, that we can require a technical review, send it off to Oliver Associates, make sure that our system can handle that increase in occupancy on those streets in those areas of the town before we would issue a permit. Okay.
And this is what you were talking about last year with the auxiliary housing units that, like, we have it out because of the water and septic issues in town.
We do, but we didn't have a requirement for it
Got it.
until we're now making it. I'm asking to make this a requirement because we definitely need technical review if you were going to see 3 more units go on to the field. 3 more units go on to Medaka-Wando.
Yeah.
And I'm just using those as examples. But I would like to make sure that we would send that off to Oliver Associates, get a technical review, come back, and see. I know our sewer system can handle that over there, but I don't know that our water, because we're still operating off a 2-inch iron. So I would like to have somebody that's much smarter than me about this, look at it, then come back with a recommendation.
I agree.
And that would have to go through the utility board, to Oliver, and then back to us through the planning board technical review.
So what if that, go ahead. Ian.
Oh, no, sorry. Is there any chance that if something like this if this was approved and something came before the utility board, that they might decide that it doesn't need to be reviewed by Oliver and Associates? Or, because what I'm wondering is, should we put in language here that requires review by the consulting group that at that time was serving the town? What's your thought on that?
You know what? That's a great point. I could put in here utility board technical review.
And
Now,
that
we
would,
are chock-a-block full of engineers on our utility board, however, not practicing and not PEs, and they also don't run our utilities.
right.
So, I mean, they do, but
I'm just thinking as the makeup changes on our boards.
Yes.
Do we want to ensure that we have that kind of somewhat objective current professional review? I'm not quite sure how we would word it or require external.
I think you could just say utility board technical review, because a technical review would have to be done by a PE, a practicing licensed PE.
Okay, so that terminology, I don't know, so if that's what it means, that's what I'm aiming for.
In our technical review section, it's got a whole host of different credentialed people that can do things for technical review,
Good,
and that would be a licensed PE.
okay.
So my question was gonna be, what if that's something more complicated, like what the hydrostatic testing or whatever, where it's a little extra? Is that something we charge the new property owner to figure that out?
Technical review costs are borne by the applicant.
Okay,
That's also already in the zone.
yeah, all right.
That is a great catch, Amy. Thank you. Okay, the next section is. And you guys can flip faster than I can scroll.
72.
This is gonna get wordsmithed a bit. The planning board wanted to. Change this, especially article. 8.1A2. So it's gonna get wordsmithed a bit. Jim Bernard had a good thing. He's gonna send that to me, but. You constantly have contractors come in here, and if it's not explicitly written in the zoning ordinance, then I don't require a permit. But they don't go to the definition. If you put a new structure on a lot in Castine, it requires a permit. Well, there's a structure definition. But they don't look at the structure definition. They just look at, well, it's not listed here, that requires a permit. So I added the but not limited to. One of the things was solar arrays over the last few years. You've gotten a lot more solar arrays, and that is in addition to a structure. By our definitions and by our zoning ordinance. However, they said, well, it's not in here, so do I require a permit? And I always said yes. So they, typically most of the solar contractors check in first and, do the right thing. They file the permit and it's done. They're used to filing permits in every other town, so they do it here. But it wasn't explicitly written in here, so I put the but not limited to, so that they could, hey, call me, let's talk it through and see whether or not they need a permit. The big change here is interior renovations. We have had multiple instances over the last, say, 10, 15 years where somebody goes in and does $200,000 in interior renovation and the town doesn't know a thing about it. Why would we? Because it said that, nobody's doing anything wrong. It was just, we didn't know anything about it. So we put in here interior renovations exceeding 150 square feet in area or $10,000 in total project cost now that requires a permit. We used kind of the bathroom standard. The average bathroom in the United States of America is 40 to 90 square feet. You could eat up $5,000 in a bathroom, no problem. So let's set 150 and 10 grand as kind of the bar to say, okay, you go above that, we need to know. And the big thing is, the first thing that the assessor's agent does when they come in is, hey, can I get your permits you've let in the last, whatever that time frame is? So I bring them up the table, here's the permits. Well, that leads to increased valuation for the taxes. But if I'm not issuing permits for it, then you might have a 4-year lag before they go back out and do a home inspection on that property. Whereas this kind of hits us where we're getting it. We're also toying around with all interior renovations need permits, but an interior renovation beneath $150 and $10,000 is a $25 charge and you're out the door. That way I just have a record of it. Okay. But for full-on plan review, et cetera, that was $150 and $10,000. I added in here ground or roof mounted solar arrays. Just because it wasn't explicitly written.
Sean, so I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume this passes and somebody. Oh, you're driving down the street, you see a bunch of contractors at somebody's house. They haven't applied for a permit. You go in and what's going on here? Oh, we're renovating a closet in the bathroom. It's $9,000 or it's, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm concerned about the enforcement side of it because, you know, it's gonna be, there's a potential for a gray area. They say it's less than 10,000. It clearly is more than, you know, like.
Well, so I'll get to that when we get to the fee structure. But I can answer the question now. So one technique a lot of communities do is they just they base their fee structure on a square footage.
Right.
You know, 100 square feet, 50 cents a square foot, and you move on. But there's a huge swath. You know, somebody could put, you know, it's not uncommon in this town, somebody puts 50 grand into a bathroom. Well, that's a tiny little square footage, and then, you know, so the valuation is going up a lot, but square footage. But that does take the guesswork out of it. It's 150 square feet times whatever that would be. So I pulled the last 3 years building permits, and I just kind of went small, medium, and large through each one of the last few years. And compared that to, I think Auburn was the one that I really liked, that, you know, they were charging 25 cents a square foot, but they have a lot more commercial properties up there that we don't have. So anyway, I just said, what's the impact going to be if we went to a square foot model here in Castine? And what I found was that the large projects, their charge didn't go up incrementally. It went up incrementally, but where you saw a real hit was the 200 or 150 square foot garage. You know, that went up a lot here. So we'll get to the fee schedule, and to answer your question, I guess that's a Tuesday. I find people working on their homes all the time, walk up, what are you doing? How you doing? Hey, I was gonna come see you, Sean. Okay, well, down here on Water Street, perfect example. Josh Leach is down here. They're completely renovating a house down here. They started the demo because they didn't have plans yet, so they started the demo. I happened to be walking my dogs by, stopped in. So it happens all the time. So do I catch everybody? No, especially when we didn't require interior renovations, having permits, but now if we're requiring interior renovations, I think I'll catch a lot more.
That's good. Okay, I think it's important.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3 here is adding parking areas, retaining walls, and patios. Again, meets the definition of a structure, however, was not explicitly in our zoning ordinance, so I just added it.
So a patio of any size?
Patio of any size.
So if somebody, you have steps coming off the back of your house and you just want to have a little, not necessarily a patio, but you want to have a little landing area that's 6 by 4. Would that need like you want to put flagstone down or
Yes.
bluestone?
that would need a permit.
Okay,
And the reason being is, it doesn't, in most of the town, a patio does not have a real impact, but if it's in resource protection, if it's in source water protection, or if it's in shoreline zone, it absolutely, we need to be aware of that, because now you're talking about, you've got very stringent state laws on what the lot coverage can be. And our lot coverage definition in our zoning ordinance is only the buildings. But when you get into shoreland and source water protection, it is the buildings and all impervious surfaces. Driveways, patios, walkways, all of that is an impervious surface, and we have to know about that so that we make sure that they are abiding by state law.
okay.
Okay, and it meets the definition of structure, so we just put that in here. Right, the next. Unless I have any questions to that. We didn't have any definition of retaining walls in our zoning ordinance. They were completely absent, so we cobbled together a precedent by ruling. I think I brought this to the utility board when Roberta, not utility board, planning board, when Roberta was on there, that we ruled that a retaining wall is substantially similar use to a fence. It was tortured logic that we got there. Anyway, we're just cleaning that up. So I put a retaining wall definition into the definitions as well. I drew that straight from Maine DEP. But we'll get to that towards the end. Okay, starting on page 94.
Mhm.
This check or credit card payment to the town, that's just dragging this ordinance a little bit into the 21st century, that I find that, and this is again, the solar power people, because they have people that do nothing but permitting. And they constantly are calling up, hey, can we pay by credit card? Because we don't want to drive over from Rockland or wherever. It's like, yeah, there's gonna be a 3% surcharge, you know? And they don't care, they're passing that back to the property owner, but the point being is, they just want to make sure that they know that you can do it. Now, let's get into building permit fees. Near as I can figure, our fee structure hasn't been updated since 2009. So I pulled the CPI in the Northeast region from 2009 to 2014, and you come out roughly at 40% increase in costs across the board. And this is one of those things where, whether you believe the CPI that's published by the federal government or you believe your lying eyes, but 40% doesn't cover the cost increases that we've seen in town. I give you Western Court Street going from 2.24 million to 3.83 million in the course of 18 months. So what I did here on the basic fees is double them. Just across the board, we doubled them. Okay. And then when you get to the additional fee structure, and we'll get to that in a bit, I stuck closer to the CPI, but I upped that by 50%. Okay. And the way this works is somebody comes in and says, hey, I need a building permit. They've got a base fee of $50. And then depending on the cost of their project, they've got an additional fee structure. And that you'll get to on page 96. What you see there is commercial going up to 270, industrial 270, institutional 270, municipal 270, etc. That reflects a 50% increase for fee structure across the board. And again, I crunched it on whether we should do a square footage model, which does take some guesswork out of it. But when we're only doing 40 or 50 permits a year, CEO's job has been spun off from the town managers, where you got somebody that can actually concentrate on it. I'm not really concerned that we're going to miss too many, you know. But this reflects a 50% increase in fees across the board down here on the additional fee.
So it used to be $25 and now it's, no, we've gone to 50 just because,
We've gone to 50.
I mean, I just have to say, it's still $50 is so cheap. I mean,
It really
I mean,
is.
compared to, I'm trying to think, I mean, I lived in a small town before, I don't think you could, I think that it was $200 or something, I mean, it's.
The difference is in most other states in the union. That you've got a building inspecting shop, you've got a planning shop, you've got other people doing things where we are beneath town, this town's beneath 4,000 population, we are not required by state law to do any building inspections. You know. So plumbers, solid fuels guys, electricians are all licensed by the state, so we don't do inspections on any of that. And I'm not even gonna give code advice on straight building code unless I'm asked, and then people will ask periodically, how far does a toilet need to be away from the sink? How, you know, what's the clearance space that you need to have in front of your toilet? And I'll tell them, you know, look it up and tell them. But that's probably what you dealt with in New York, that's what you deal with in Mass, that's what you deal with in New Jersey and a lot of other places where they are very litigious with their building permits. Whereas here, we're not required by state law, and unless to invest, unless we as a town were to invest a lot more money than we're investing in this for 40, 50 permits a year, I don't know that it would be worthwhile. Added to which, the people that will see that large increase more will be, hey, I want to put a 10 by 15 shed on my property. They'll see a huge increase, whereas an extra $100 for somebody that's doing $1 million project, who cares,
Right.
right? It's not even a rounding error. So that's where I would advocate to you that you keep it where it's at. And you can play around with these numbers a little bit. You're coming closer to being revenue neutral with this animal housing ordinance that I'm working on. So once you get those two things, you're getting pretty close to being revenue neutral. Although last year would have paid for my salary for the next 2-3 years. Anyway, I think we did 95,000 in fees last year. So, you know. The big change though here that you'll see is the 100,000 to $1 million and the over $1 million. Those would have had a pretty large impact on the large projects we had last year. You know, to the tune of, you know, an extra 50 grand for one of them alone. So that's not, you know,
So Sean,
50 grand here, 50 grand there, sooner or later you talk
if
about money.
if somebody comes in, Lou, you know, I use me as an example. Next year, we're gonna do a project. I'm already talking to Josh Leach. I'm gonna come, you know, soon and apply for the permit.
Mhm.
You know, Josh is a time and material guy. I don't know what it's gonna cost exactly. We're gonna have a ballpark. It's a 3-month project. So how do you actually determine, you know, when contractors are working time and material, how do you establish what the cost of the project is?
Well, the way the ordinance is written, that I have to use the greater of the sum. It's either what the contractor tells me it's gonna cost or use that cost table. So,
Okay.
you know, either, I can use either or, and there's no debate about it. If the contractor comes in and says it's gonna be 100 grand and the cost table tells me it's gonna be 150, I charge 150.
Yeah,
It's, there's no debate there.
okay, good.
Because it says the greater of.
Okay, so it's black and white.
It is black and white.
Okay,
Now, if somebody comes in and says it's gonna cost, you know, 150,000 and you know in your heart of hearts that it's 250 or 300. That becomes a little bit more difficult, but those are really one-offs,
okay.
you know, it has happened. We know it's happened, but those are fairly rare.
Okay,
Well, 1 in 6 years. That I can honestly say. That I think, but I don't know, can't prove. Okay, and then I think that's it, other than a definition of a retaining wall down in our definition section. Oh,
We end at 97.
no, I added home generators to essential services. The zoning ordinance gives the authority to both the CEO and the planning board to rule on activities that we don't have a definition for and rule them substantially similar to what is in the zoning ordinance. That's all the way back up in both the code enforcement officer, Article 8, and then the planning board's Article 9. Living in coastal Maine where we lose power about 6 times a year. And I have always viewed, as did Jimmy and Dale before me, viewed home generators as essential services. That does come with, can come with a butter's not necessarily liking that a generator is right next to them, especially when you're in the village here. And I get that. But I would much rather have a home generator be designated as an essential service than have the fire department during an ice storm having to run out to add another house to go and do a wellness check on that house when they got a lot of other things going on. And if somebody has the wherewithal to put a home generator in and that relieves the fire department from that responsibility, I'm good with that. But that's the whole genesis of that. And then I think the last thing is definition of a retaining wall. And this retaining wall is straight from Maine DEP. I also put it in a permit required, and the reason being is retaining wall by its nature is designed to retain something, meaning you're changing the grade to keep back whatever that retaining wall is designed to retain. It says in the zoning ordinance that the planning board has to approve changes in the gradient by more than 6 inches. But if you put a retaining wall in, it didn't require a permit. So retaining walls also can change the watershed flow. So just to make sure that we are covering all bases, we put a definition into the definition section and included retaining walls as a permittable thing. So that we can make sure that we are closing the gaps. Yeah, it's on page 125, retaining wall. A vertical or near vertical structure constructed of wood, concrete, masonry, or rock designed to retain soil up gradient from the base of the wall. Okay, and then also requires a permit in Article 8. That's it.
Thank you, Sean.
Their listening session is tomorrow? Next week.
No,
Next Tuesday, the
Next
18th,
Tuesday.
yeah, the 18th,
Okay.
at 4.
and that'll be a public hearing
About these proposed changes.
where they can vote. So they've done 2 work sessions so far on these. They'll have a public hearing on the 18th. They'll vote to recommend. Then once they vote to recommend, it goes over in your all's court to accept the recommendations, not accept the recommendations, change them, or and then get them on the warrant for the town in what's it, June now?
Yeah.
In June.
June 7th.
And then you all will have to have a public hearing no later than 30 days prior to the town meeting to discuss the same. Okay?
So Sean, just one question, I'm looking at this, the letter you've been sending out to the comments.
Mm-hmm.
So you send the letter out, hopefully they comply, okay? If they comply and say the next day they put the house for sale. And now there's a property being sold that's not, you know, up to code. So what happens in a case like that,
So real estate agents are required to do due diligence.
right?
And so that means that they will have to look at the map and lot file. A copy of this has to go in the map and lot file,
Okay,
okay? So, I don't know exactly what would happen in that case in the real estate world, but it would certainly be I would assume, a fairly substantial price reduction.
no, but I guess if somebody else buys the property, okay, you've got a non-compliant piece of property. So before, once this is in place, nobody can live in that property until it complies with everything it needs to comply with.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Black and white, love it.
It's pretty black and white.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, John.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah,
Go get some rest.
hope you feel better.
Here, this is sweet.
I think it's. I know what that is. I can tell by the thickness of it.
We just pop down the project.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, so we're gonna change up the agenda a little bit and do project canopy next. I know, instead of making you sit here for the rest of your life.
I don't know if you guys got the email I sent around this morning, sort of summarizing, or at least having the sections of both grant guidance and our grant proposal that referred to the ordinance pieces, right? So I think you have some questions for me, right? You want to send, if you want to start there, if you want me to.
One question that I have is probably just. The ordinance is in the grant, right? It's to do some sort of ordinance work is part of the grant.
Yes, so yeah, so we, yeah.
If you did a policy instead of an ordinance, would that?
So the ordinance can be as simple, I think the key points, the minimum that we want to do in an ordinance is identify who is responsible, like who would carry forward work related and to expand, I guess, let me step back. I think the challenge that Castine has is that the current ordinance is only about elms, right? So you want to broaden that. You want to pay attention to more than elms. So we're looking at a number of different things within the, looking at assessing or producing a status report around the woodlands in and across Castine, including the canopy, plus the 3 more in-depth plans that are focused more on developing a site where one can do public education. I mean, essentially, right, and demonstrate project forest management techniques. The Maine Forest Service, and who knows if the U.S. Forest Service has anything to do with anything anymore, but the Maine Forest Service is interested in having towns pay more attention to their woodlands more broadly. And they're encouraging towns to put together tree committees, conservation committees, et cetera, et cetera. We have already done a lot because we have a tree committee, and we do try and we have a specific intensive management plan for our village elms, but not for anything else. And so the approach that we put together in the proposal was, that we do some assessments and do the things I just mentioned. And we included reference to updating ordinances. It didn't have to be, but it was one of the possible grant activities that they'd be happy to fund. So we included that, again, with the idea of broadening what we're doing. So it could be as simple as saying, crafting a line or two that changes the focus of or adds to the current focus. So it's not just about elms, it's about trees and woodlands in Castine. And it while that ordinance, I haven't analyzed it, but the one that you have really, but it's, it really provides direction to the tree committee to take steps, and you guys fund it annually to inoculate the elms and keep track of things, take down, ones that are bad. So. For me, the question is whether what direction the select board wants to go with, creating a more holistic approach for Castine and how. Management wise, you want to approach that. Do you want to take the current tree committee and expand its mandate so that it, looks at, like, does the kinds of things that we're exploring in the proposal or the project activities, right? So they would oversee those kinds of activities and what comes out of it going forward. Maybe it's got a couple of sub branches or, whatever. You've got a committee, expand its mandate and provide it a bit of direction. That would be one approach. That's probably I personally think that would be the better long-term approach, because it's saying, oh, we've used to focus on this, now we're going to focus on something a little bit wider. Because I appreciate, because of personalities, the fact Don's like, you've got a botanist who's really interested in taking care of the elms and he's into it, and that's great, so I do you want to kind of continue, just have him have his space and find a different way to get these other things done? That's also an option. You could say, maybe there's a side subgroup under the tree committee that works on these other things, or maybe you want a conservation committee, which.
Considering that elm trees are so, I mean, I don't call it problematic, they're beautiful trees, but we do have this issue of
Yeah,
Dutch elm disease. I mean, I just think that, they have to expand, because over time, even with the wonderful job that they're doing taking care of the trees. I mean, in the 6 years I'm here, I have seen 10 elms go down. I don't know how many, but if we're not replanting trees that are diverse and disease resistant, we're not gonna have a canopy to manage.
Yeah.
So.
and if we're looking more broadly on, if we're interested in the woodlands and the natural environment in all of Castine, we need to sort of take our eyes off just the tree and look at the forest, right?
Yeah.
And we're limited in terms of what we can actually do. Like, the stakeholder group to date has, is clearly not going to go in the direction of recommending telling private landowners what to do or committing the town to a whole lot of management activities that they can't afford. But that's why it's sort of coming out of this work, there is the potential to have these little demonstration sites. People can continue to, we want to raise awareness and increase actions that do more that will help our woodlands be diverse and healthy, and fewer things that move us in the
So
opposite
maybe
direction.
just as an example, so
Yeah.
as a little boy, my grandfather lived in the street. And I'll never forget, the street was just this little street, and I remember the elm trees
Yeah.
like touching, and you go down the street and it was just like shady and beautiful. Dutch elm disease came, I mean, in a matter of a couple of years, there were no trees. I mean, it was just naked, and I don't know why. I mean, that was, 50, 60 years ago. When I go to my grandfather's street now, you've got trees that are 12. I mean, they didn't, like, there was no initiative to replant them and to do other things. And you go to the street now, it
Doesn't have the same feel.
it just doesn't all have the same feel. So I just think that it's in the interest of Castine that we can't force a private landowner if a tree dies, but we can say, we have these resources. We can encourage people to we can say, here's a recommended list of and ways to manage it, because the trees are important to town.
Yeah,
So can I?
please, yeah, sorry, that was a long diversion.
No,
Yeah.
no, just a quick question. So you need some guidance from us on how to proceed, and I was talking to Derek earlier, and we were talking about, we think we're gonna get a much better picture when you guys do your public engagement.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
that's going to give us a lot more information.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, so we either simply expand the elm tree mandate, or we sort of expand it and add a little subcommittee. So we add something to their current workload, you know where I'm coming from here. Or we add that and then we add a little subcommittee to that committee that deals with conservation or whatever, or we could actually create a conservation committee. Those are kind of our.
Yeah, I mean, either you decide that you want to expand the scope of the tree committee. Absolutely, you have to change the elm ordinance, right? Because you want it's the ordinance that will define the mandate or mandates of whomever in the town you want to work on those things, right? So you do want to make, and I think the thought is that you probably want to make some very minor changes to the current.
Clean it up a little bit.
So it might be a few words, and we might not actually need a consultant to come up with a whole bunch of, new stuff. But we sort of put it in there from the start, just give us options. And certainly, from a technical perspective, we'll have, a better idea of the recommendations that will come out. So we're going to have a community consultation in early April, and then we'll have a community information session that has the recommendations and the information coming out from the analyses. So there'll be a little bit of presentation in April. Here's what we're doing. But in July, when there's more people here, we'll have a bigger presentation that says, here's what we see and here's what we recommend. The bottom line message will be very simple. Help, diverse woodlands and ecological areas are, get you to healthy, right? They're more healthy and more resilient. So diversity then means sort of like the right mix of species or a good mix of species, and also mixed ages, right? Mixed size. So, and then there's sort of, the other leg of that stool is pest diseases and invasives. So those are the negative things. So you want more diversity, and you want species that are suitable for the locations and for what's coming, right, for the climate, and that are good for woodland, for woodland creatures and all the rest. This is just like a little side example, just to think about, like the current group is really good at focusing on the elms, and they feel uncomfortable pressing. It's difficult to press landowners in town to plant a new tree on their property when an elm goes down, because it's going to obstruct the view, or they don't want, they don't want the hassle, or they want to have a garden instead of, they don't want the shade or something. So they find that challenging. But there should also, there's also a question that comes up in my mind in terms of, well, who makes the decision around what gets promoted, right? So I've heard a thought like ginkgo trees are a really good idea. And I've also heard an opinion that perhaps oaks are undesirable because the acorns are annoying, but oaks are in fact like the best tree for wildlife and the most diverse set of insects and all the rest. And anybody can have, and I'm sure there's lots of other options. There are other options and ideas, but there should be sort of, there should be some good. Who makes those decisions? I guess is a little bit that question, but it's less specific. Specific. It's more than just the streetscape and what's helpful and nice to have. It's how does the town want to tackle the barberry, knotwood, and what's the other one? Bittersweet. Thank you. And like that. What is it? The invasive roses are sort of number 4 probably. But yeah, and talking to the foresters and the people from the trust organizations. That has to be kind of like a townwide initiative.
So, but could
unless there's an initiative,
could
like
we,
everyone's on board.
Could we as a town say these trees are not allowed to be planted?
I think that would be unwise. Like, I think it's better to say, here's what we encourage, and here's what we discourage, because then
Yeah,
you
but
get,
if somebody
Yeah.
plants an invasive something
yeah,
and it's not taken care of and
yeah.
it goes into the neighbor's yards and all over, it can become a real problem really quick.
It can't, well, it already has, is the issue, so since they are everywhere already. How can we work at reducing them and
Right.
encouraging people to remove them from their own properties, and that maybe there's options for volunteer work, but maybe there's also options for a little bit of town, activity on the sides of the roads, like, look,
Yeah.
we're removing, we're digging up the knotweed anywhere on a main road, like,
Mhm.
that could be something that could be done in spring and fall or something like that, and you do it for a few years and you make progress. You might not eradicate it completely, but you show, what should be done. And there may be conversations to be had over the next couple of years about the property behind the Wilson Museum, which is town. Everyone's familiar with it. We tromped through it with one of the foresters and Julie from the Wilson Museum. It's solid Barbary and not much else. And the only way really to address that, and there are drainage issues there, right? So, and Sean's been, kind of thinking, was talking to me about it last year, the year before. Could we address the drainage issues in that piece of property? That's it. So there's places where drainage, which is impacted by, impacted by the rains and the storms, and then erosion and affects the shoreline. Kind of thing you need money for, probably not high on the priority list when there's so many things pending. But it's that kind of longer term planning that I think the idea here is, let's set the stage with some decent information, start slowly to raise awareness, and then advocate for more of something, less of something. So anyway, that's more about what is it that we want to try to do. And the question, I'm not anticipating that you'll say, here's what we want the ordinance to look like today, but over the next
We're pretty efficient.
2 or 3 months, seriously.
But no, this is time to get us
I know.
started.
It's just a little bit
This was
background.
just Janice thinking
Okay.
Yeah.
about this, But I'm
Yeah, go ahead.
thinking that Derek is.
Go ahead, mine's just an off the wall thing that I thought of while I was reading through this over the last few days.
I've never heard you say anything off the wall, Jerry.
Okay, but go-
You're about to.
I think what you're saying in your plan, it will require a really good educational component
Mhm.
and and I think that's a great thing.
Mhm.
That it's something that we can do lots of education around and we can bring in the kids at the schools and
Mhm.
we can do all of that.
And,
So I
and
think
and even like, if there's some written material, somebody buys a house in town.
Yeah.
And when the realtors at the closing, welcome to Castine, here's some things you should know about initiatives that we're working on.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the thing, we have all these forests, whoever manages them, right? And I thought of this off the wall idea, but it's not really off the wall, I think it's pretty good.
But what if we think
But-
it's further off the wall?
Well, you might think it is, right? I think it's pretty good, cause it's something outside the box, okay? So. In front of Greenby, we have that field, right? And on the map that we had, it was marked in yellow, so I don't know if that is part of Greenby or not. You know where I'm talking, like the parking lot, then the field with the with the big transformer is in there too? Over by the transfer station.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, because one of the things we talked about was planting things, I think what would be cool would be if we planted fruit trees. And we had like a municipal fruit tree field where people could get pears, apples, plums, whatever. And it would be a community fruit tree area.
Community woodlot for fruit.
So that's what I was just thinking of the other day.
And the solar
Well,
system, we could have a self-regulating water system, you know?
Well, I don't know what goes into that whole thing, but I know one of the things that you can apply for after this is tree planting funds, and I know there's soil pH balances, so I don't even know if it would support it, but I just thought that would be a cool like thing to have a municipal fruit tree
I wouldn't
orchard.
call it off the wall, I would consider it one when you do genius idea.
I don't know if it's
There you go.
genius,
So-
it
so-
might not be possible, but I just thought it would be really
Yeah.
cool. You know, you hang your hats on, Castine has its own orchard for its community to feed people or whatever, so yeah.
And it's kind of cute. And this is the kind of thing that I think with,
Water Street corner, if we don't get the other one, I'm starting to look at that for a fruit orchard, that's my next thing, just so you know, I've been thinking about it.
well, just to say, so this is the kind of like open brainstormy idea that would be fun to get from, whoever, we'll see if, who turns up, but getting input about what would you like to know, what would you like out of this, these sets of assessments about, the woodlands and the open areas and the forests that you have, that we have in town, or even that you have on your property. And what idea, what kind of ideas do you have about what we could do afterwards? And so that's a really kind of fun, creative idea.
This is great.
There's a question like in April.
Yeah.
in The public engagement that you're talking about, because a lot of our woodlands around Castine are part of the, was it Main Coast or Blue Hill Heritage Trust? I always forget. Are they gonna be part of that to answer questions for people or be a reference or
Yes.
resource that night?
Is the short answer.
Good.
Yeah, they've been providing lots of input and are very involved,
Good.
and have helped us decide where to do what, and just say like, everyone's like, what about Witherly Woods? So it's not, we're, in the end, we haven't chosen Witherly Woods as one of our places for the forest management plans, because they've already done several forest management plans, and they are happy to sort of to both provide a very detailed annex that describes what they're doing there, and also be a substantial part of, based on our kind of collective recommendations, by creating and being part of and creating public education opportunities, bring people to see what they're doing, monitoring that over time, and having it be part of a program. So
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For all the work that
Good
you've
job.
done on this project. So now that we are all kind of up to speed, I think, we'll keep it we'll keep thinking about it. Probably attend the April session.
yeah, that would be
Listen to
great.
what they tell us, and then we'll go from there. And if you're game, we may ask you back.
Sure.
What is your due date for like, when would we need to have?
So, good question. I think that, so with our original timeframe, which we have blown out of the water because we couldn't get foresters for 3 or 4 months. I had been thinking that we would have our reports done in March, and then the ordinance work would take place in April, and then you could put those things forward on the annual meeting. Given this now shifted time frame, I think if we should have the ordinance drafted by July, August latest. We do need to wrap up in September. And what you could do is you could decide what you want out of the ordinance. We can have somebody draft it, you look at it, you decide what you want it. And then, our grant deliverable is that we put an ordinance together. We didn't say anything about when it gets passed, right? So you could put it forward in November, at that timeframe. But we do need to wrap up the work.
So we
More or
would,
less in
if
August.
we have to have a vote, we would be in November.
Sorry,
If we have to have a town vote, we'd be in November.
Exactly.
Okay.
but you should
We
have,
to be
yeah,
wrapped up by August.
yes, yeah,
Okay,
wrapped up by August. That gives us sort of a month to finalize whatever we're finalizing and submit our reports end of September.
What is the date of the?
I think it's the 3rd.
April 3rd.
I'll double check. I think it's the 3rd.
so I think that's.
Is that what I said?
Down.
Yeah.
It is, I just looked in my calendar.
You put it on the
Yeah.
calendar already.
Yeah, it's on the town calendar and
Yes,
in mine.
6 to 7:20.
Twice, yeah.
Okay.
And we are, I haven't identified a person yet, but Julie, Greg gave us some suggestions about facilitators. That maybe we'd use a facilitator just to, if we can get them. Okay.
So much, okay.
Pleasure. Happy to answer any other
We will
questions.
have we will work on an ordinance for you.
Well, say it's really, I just wanted, you to be thinking about where, you know, how. Where you want these activities to reside going forward, and it just needs to be clarified. And you have several options.
I just appreciate you explaining.
So,
Well, by the way, City of Portland actually has a public orchard, just so you know, I just saw that.
So you
So I
can't-
guess it's not as crazy as I thought, right?
Other
I just looked up Maine municipal fruit tree orchards, and now I'm thinking that's a good
And I bet you
idea.
if we were to work with Mafka and you know, Maine Heritage Apples, you know, it would be even cooler. There's a, you know, Mafka has an apple thing every year where they have, like, you look at the apples, they're all different shapes and sizes and colors, and flavors and. So I- Oh, cool, oh. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, oh, yeah. So I have a quick question for you. Do you think, I mean, I know we have a lot going on, do you think we can be done by 6:30?
We probably can't, we have to have our executive, we have to have an executive.
I know
session to
that.
go to. So I think, yeah, I think we can be done by 6:30.
So
Okay,
that'd
let's
be
go.
good. Okay,
Alright, so let's talk, the round school. So I gave everybody, a draft and, I received some feedback. And so, you know, to change it to research, well, you guys see it here. They're gonna research what the governor and legislature's plans are for Maine.
Do you mind if I throw that up on the screen for the people at home, just so they can see it? Yeah.
And then we're gonna identify possible child-centered program uses for the facility. Develop a needs assessment for Castine. Engage with potential collaborators. And then recommend their plan to the select board and to the broader community. And some of the things that I've been hearing, are that people really want to see, a completely new board
Mhm.
at the round school.
I would say that's almost,
That's very, it's a.
I would say it's 100% near everyone we've spoken
It's
to.
and it's not something that's negotiable because most people, the whole board needs to change. And there have been so many people who have come to me, and probably you, saying, well, you know, there's this daycare center and they want to expand, or there's this group and they want to expand. And so people are super excited about this project.
The daycare in Orland has a 1-year waiting list. The home has almost a 1-year waiting list. The place in Blue Hill has a 1-year. I mean, all these places have waiting lists.
This is gonna be great.
Yeah,
So we have a list of. Well, so first, I wanted to ask, was there anything else that needs to be sort of added? Amy, did you have some?
No, I'm just looking at some of my notes, which I didn't have a chance to send to you, but I'm seeing them here.
Okay, great.
Which is good. And the only thing, and this may be too in the weeds at this point for the committee, but the only thing I might ask them about is like an educational model, right? Like,
Right.
what would we as a town
Yeah.
want to see philosophically? Right now, the Round School has a very specific educational model. And there can be, you know, reasons for different models. And so I'm kind of curious, I don't know a lot about a lot of the models, but if that should be part of the conversation as well, in terms of what kind of learning community do we want to support? And does that tie into Adams School if we see these kids, you know, transitioning through our different facilities?
And I think, the current. The current model is very child-centered. And it's very developmentally centered, which is all great. And I really think it's a great, I really do think it's a great model. However, at some point, you do need to make some shifts because children need to understand that when they get into the Adams School, they have to sit at a desk. And they have to do certain things and they have to listen to their teacher right now. And now is the time to be quiet and all of those things. So if there's I'm not early childhood, but I know that there's a point where you have to start making that shift so that the children can survive in the new situation. That's what we.
The other thing that I think is critical, and I heard this today, that the hours of operation aren't convenient. For example, they don't open until 8 o'clock. Okay, and so it really needs to be open from 7 AM, so parents can drop, like MMA opens at 8 o'clock. Professors have to
Depends
be,
what your job is at MMA.
Some people go earlier.
Much earlier, yeah.
So, yeah, so that's.
so that's really important. And you know, really serving as if I could call it a complete bridge of kids prior to public school and
After school
and
programs.
after school program.
Absolutely.
And I personally would love to see if one of the rooms became like a music room and we had music teachers coming and doing things with the kids. And then the other piece of it is when MMA is closed. Okay, you've got a winter break that's like 5 weeks. Amy, is it 4 weeks, 5 weeks?
Oh, roughly a month, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so so during that time when this people are off, can they offer more support for
Right.
families?
And that's actually a distinction though, which would be important to know, because even though the students are gone, we as staff are there.
Exactly.
Right, so you still have staff at the academy in that, think about 10 days off.
Exactly,
Otherwise, we're still there and there would be families who would still need the care.
yeah, and then also, I mean, we do have this wonderful, quasi summer camp between the yacht club and the golf club and the tennis club. But if I can just use this as an example, my grandchildren come, they weren't old enough to do sailing. But Nancy and WG wouldn't, it's 5 days a week or nothing. They don't offer, there was no flexibility. So, there are people like for example, if somebody's teaching 3 days a week at MMA, they may not need 5-day childcare. Maybe they want to be home with their kids in the days that they're not teaching. But right now they have a very strict policy. It's 5 days a week or nothing. And then the other thing is, I think that the committee should look at, and I don't know how you do it. How do you create a sliding scale based on what people are making? And that's very common with preschools. That you have to submit your tax returns. It's because you really want to serve the entire community.
So I'm really excited about this project.
So
So Derek, is it possible for you to give us a list of people for next Monday for the meeting that we could appoint them to the committee and the committee could get started?
Yeah, I think you're gonna want, I think I just flashed my list that I have by accident up on the screen, so some people can probably see it. Do you wanna know who's been interested so
Yeah,
far?
yeah.
I mean, I know we talked about 9 people, I'm not sure if we have it all,
This is a work
all
session.
the people that, the stakeholders, I guess. Like, I wanna make sure
Oh,
that
Yeah,
you're punching the list, so maybe it ends up being a little bigger, but of course, Bobby Bott was the first person, Elizabeth Lewis, Mark Morgione,
Yep.
Meg Taylor, Casey Bernard,
Meg
Rachel.
can't do it.
Meg can't do it now, okay, Casey Bernard, Rachel Sawyer, Sarah Stammen, and Lindsay Vaught.
we can have Ren out.
Oh, and that's right, Ren just emailed me today. I forget.
And how-
Spell her name.
Do we appoint a chair or do they appoint the chair?
I think we'll let. maybe we should appoint a chair.
I think it might not be a bad.
Yeah, I think we,
Did you have a question?
I do. Is this, an evolution to a public childcare center?
public being free,
Secret.
it's a 501.
It's still probably gonna be a 501. And, you know, as part of the research, the group will figure out.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing thing. What Augusta is thinking.
Yeah.
Oh,
But Brooke, on that one, I think it needs to be a 501(c)(3), because I would like to see a serious fundraising component to this. Like, I would like it to be that the challenge is not finding the money to run the place, the challenge is making it a really cool place. And if it's a 501(c), it's a lot easier to raise money.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me listening to this
yeah,
conversation,
no, we're not running it.
because the town is,
No,
because
the
you
town,
are getting involved in it, and so what,
no, we just,
what was that?
because the town has the lease.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I was talking with Ren earlier today, and if it's necessary to obtain a new DHHS license, that takes about a year.
Mhm.
And the lease is up in 26, so we just wanted to get things started and have something to present to the town no later than next year at town meeting,
Yeah.
and say, here's the new plan for that facility. Bobby?
But it will not, but it will be important for this board to express its sense of what's kind of a structure you want, because you're gonna lease it to somebody.
Right.
What that looks like, and
Right.
So I hope you'll be open to more than one.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
we will, and it's and it's, we're at work sessions, we're just throwing
Yeah.
stuff out, but I don't know that it's out of the realm of possibility that some of the people on this committee may not become the new board. Or part of the new board.
I'm just gonna throw this again, this is a work session, I'm at the YMCA the other day and talking to the new director, and she said to me, do you know that we partner with communities all over and run daycare centers, you know, and preschool programs and after-school programs. So we might find somebody who's already I don't want to say the business, but they're already operating, established, and they've been doing it for 20 years. So, you know, what if they said, oh, we, you know, we'll partner with the town. I mean, money's always the issue with these things, but if the town help pay for it, they would run it and be the licensed operator.
And one thing that.
Yeah.
But one thing is that I think it would be really important to have a select board liaison to this group, and I don't know if you have time for that. But if you do, I think that would be phenomenal, so I can do that.
Thank you, Angie.
No, I know years ago when my kids were little, I was on the board of Otter House,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, with, you know, other people
You have
and whatever.
experience.
Your different members of your family, so, no, I'm happy to
That would
do that.
It would be great, because I think it will just be helpful for, to have a liaison from the select board to be able to, for the committee can send questions back, and, you know, it'll just be a nice.
And for me, this is such a foundational issue for the town.
Mhm.
If we can make short work of getting this revitalized.
Mhm.
And it really becomes a resource for the families and the kids in town. It becomes a huge tool to MMA.
Oh.
It becomes a huge, for any family that moves to town, you know, it just becomes an absolute game changer.
Absolutely, I mean, I just ran into someone before coming to the meeting today, and, you know, the family that uses the round school, and, you know, they said, you know, all the rooms are open. They have all the staff, but it's inconsistent, right? So, you know, she's like, at the moment, all my kids are there. But in the interim, when it wasn't that, they were shuttling one child to, I don't know, Orland or Penobscot or somewhere else,
Yeah.
and trying to work, right? And it's just, it's very, very difficult,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Bobby?
When Derek was talking about parties, interested parties being represented, it seems to me, given what everybody said, that MMA is an interested party in this, and with you as a liaison, maybe that takes care of it, or would you suggest that somebody who works at MMA be on the?
Was it,
I would, yeah, I would, I know Ren is an employee of MMA right now, Ren Alvin, she's a professor there. But I wouldn't want to speak on her behalf to say that that's the hat she's wearing. I think with my role on the select board, I don't think I should wear an MMA role. I just feel like there should be, you know, no image of
What's the-
conflict of interest. What's that?
Peter?
So, but I would think that it would be nice to have someone from MMA.
Absolutely.
And I
On the
admit,
board.
I forgot to send Greg a note. And ask him, so I will do that. I was remiss.
But when we, I don't know, we recently spoke to Craig, and Craig was like, it's so important
Yeah.
for them, because they lose professors and they lose staff because
Right.
there isn't good childcare.
Right, and he might have a recommendation or somewhere within, you know, HR or somewhere where they might have a recommendation of someone who would be good to sit on the board to represent.
I will
the
ask him.
institution.
Hopefully he can be able to represent somebody.
And is this school, the Adams?
The ag school has not committed yet. Because I think the school board is trying to figure out if at this point in time, if they need to be a part. Like, I think they would probably like to be able to use a room in that building for 3-year-old special education intervention, should it be necessary. But I think they're still trying to figure out where we stand, so we don't have somebody at the moment. But we will choose the-
Just to the, I'm sorry, I'm taking too much airtime, but to the question of what kind of a format, what model you're gonna use.
Yeah.
The
That should be
juxtaposition of those is being important to,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll get back to Johanna. and-
you don't have to get back to me, can I just jump on Fred and?
Go, get it. That'd be great, thank you. Okay, are we
Yeah.
good? This is good stuff, all
So
right.
exciting.
Okay, so I have on here solar project, revision wants to give us a,
It's a revision,
Okay.
contacted me,
oh, okay.
and they, Derek has been in touch with them, and
Okay.
Derek, you're gonna meet tomorrow, 10:30?
Yeah,
Okay.
are you gonna be on that? It's gonna be on Teams, so you can come here or
I'll
just join remotely,
Yeah.
whichever is easier for
Okay,
you.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody.
And just so you know, they have a division
Mhm. Yeah,
of
that's great.
revision that does commercial and, what do they call it? It's a commercial and a, municipal
Great,
division.
terrific.
I will say that there are bills working their way through Augusta to change net metering and do some other things. So I did talk to Ted also, and he said that, you know, he's been going to those and testifying. And of course, he has also mentioned some legislators that want to get rid of it. He's kind of put a pitch in saying, well, okay, if you want to get rid of these commercial operations, but what about municipalities trying to, you know, offset property taxes or provide power for their own residents? You know, there are communities out there considering doing that, and he said that some of the legislators are like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, I'm working with one right now, so cause I think it would be a shame to get rid of all of that when really it could, you know, benefit you know, taxpayers and actually use brownfields basically that are useless for anything else, make them tax generating properties. Or revenue producing, offsetting property tax.
And I didn't go to testify, but I did send testimony. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But, okay, passport parking, I don't think Derek and I really have a, an update, but I can say that I bought their book, which is about 6 inches.
Is it their book or is it just a book in
It's a
general?
book- It's a book called The Cost of Free
Oh, you
Parking.
have that on the
Yes.
table.
It's like bigger than the Bible.
Really relevant.
Must be pretty exciting.
Yes, but it is very interesting, how they go through and they explain that there really is sort of a cost of having free parking, because if your parking is all free, people tend to ignore the timeframes that you set up much more easily than if they're paying for it, which is, I don't know, I have to read more, but it's very interesting, and so I still don't think that the town is quite ready for paid parking, but it's a very interesting book, so I'll share it with you guys. All right. All right, the visitor center parking space. So this came up, what are they called? The Merchants Association asked if they could have their space, and then there was a little bit of confusion because it was felt that if we gave the visitor center a space, we need to give every business a space, and then if we do that, then there's no more spaces for tourists. So what do we do? So Derek and I had a conversation, and Derek said, well, if we give the visitor center a space and the visitor center is run by the Merchants Association, that's kind of like us giving the Merchants Association a space.
To represent all merchants.
Look of them, I don't know, but Derek is good.
I just
And
think
we
it's
also
logical, those people are gonna spend money if
and
they're
we-
looking for information.
We talked at the meeting about perhaps putting it at that last 15-minute parking space that's sort of diagonal from the thing. What do you guys think? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, like if someone was coming into town, like if you're a out of town visitor, if you're coming down Main Street, you might naturally be looking for that parking, which is all immediately in front of you. And so I was wondering, what would it be like if we actually had their space down Water Street, like closer to like Benta Hartman's house?
Exactly.
Sure.
It's
We-
not the
we-
most immediate space, but you have to walk
mean,
maybe
listen,
50 feet.
so what?
And,
I mean,
right, because the bank has some bank spaces in
Spaces,
front of them, as I recall.
I like that.
Or maybe they're just timed, maybe they're not
I think
specific
they're
to
just
the
The
bank.
15-minute
Right, okay,
spaces.
so they're just timed
Except
We
there.
can do right
But if we
after
moved
that.
down a little bit,
Yeah, they should get prime real estate.
maybe there's, right, because I think there's something about, as a visitor coming to town, the spontaneity of
Right.
finding a parking space. And then also, I feel like if you're pulling into that last one, let's say, I don't know, if you have like a truck and the one in front, by the time you pull in and see the sign that you can't use it.
Then
so maybe that's not a great vibe.
Yeah,
That's
I like
Be
that.
out of the way a little bit.
the street.
yeah,
So we could do it on a trial basis and see what feedback we get from them as well as maybe others.
I think we could just letter visitor, employee parking or whatever,
Something, have a sign
Yeah,
that's
the sign.
Visitor
that's
center
reserved.
parking. So Derek,
Well, but, right, but
Visitor
visitor wanted for the
center-
staff of visitor, not
staff.
for visitors.
visitor
but the
center
visitor
staff
Something
parking
like that,
or
yeah.
something.
which is staff parking visitor center.
Yeah, something, however. So this would be a change to the traffic ordinance.
Mm,
So we would need to, we need to write it up. And figure out where.
Whatever the language is gonna be, right?
And then we need public hearing,
mm.
and then we need to have a vote on it,
Mhm.
right? Because that's like our only ordinance that we own. So,
Maybe we just need to go down and.
And
figure out exactly which spot, which
even
spot
if we're,
most-
even if we're trying it for the 60 days, we have to have a vote, I mean, just.
Yeah.
Okay,
we have to have a vote, but we don't have to have it in place until, I'd say, May, or, have this done until May, so we have time. For
We
June.
could,
We have
right,
time
if
to
we're
go
not ready
down
for this
and
right
check it
at May, then I
Yeah.
think we're still fine, even if
But
it's still not.
we have time to get this done, so, but just so that we know that it's remains on our, okay, so everybody's homework is to go down and pick a space.
okay,
Okay. All right, no, I like the Water Street thing, that's good.
Right,
right.
everybody pick out their spot,
Okay.
so I know which one it is when the time comes.
Okay, we never sent the letter to Maine Maritime Academy about the traffic calming. Sorry. So I think I was thinking that because of the cost, we had sort of, we weren't really going to investigate the increased police option. And so that's why I had written it that way, but then you were thinking maybe we
I
could just
think-
ask for. vote.
I think we should have to vote, because I had a conversation with um. Craig.
Mhm.
And I said, Craig, you know, we have to deal with the traffic situation. Would MMA be open to helping to pay for it? And he said, yes, we can have that conversation. He didn't say yes or a dollar amount, but he
Right,
said, yes, yeah,
Right.
let's open the door to that conversation. And I, you know, I still, I mean, listen, it is very expensive. You know, 24 hours at $130,000. But I also say, you know. If it saves a life, if students, when they come to town, when people come to town, like, and I would love to have. As we drive into town at the golf course, I would like to come up with some slogan about safety in Castine, and it becomes a theme that we all, the MMA uses it when they're doing the orientation. We use it whenever we talk with, you know, but I just think that it will be very helpful. I mean, and listen, I'm not here to pick on anyone, but even like the students came back last night, I hear the, you know, going to sleep and I hear the pickup trucks. Okay.
That's not like a motorcycle almost. That's not even going fast. It's probably like 50.
No, but I'm saying, but I can hear, you know, I can hear.
They go by my house.
Yeah, and I just would like there to be, I mean, I know that you worked very hard at the school this year. I mean, I have a couple of students who have been helping me around the house, and they tell me how, what an emphasis there has been about traffic safety. So I know that MMA is doing their part, but we just, it's a big problem.
well, my thoughts are that, my thoughts are that we kind of do it in
Stages.
stages,
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm at, but I would.
Yeah, I mean, I am too, I'm not, right now, I'm not convinced that we need the increased police presence. I think I expressed that, you know, earlier, that, and when we had the listening session on traffic calming, I was hearing support from people for, different options, whether it be using our digital sign to start getting data, to start seeing what is the use around town. Maybe speed tables, speed bumps, things that might be a little bit less expensive. And not that people were necessarily opposed to the police presence, but those things might be able to
Let's do it for
sooner and less
Yeah.
expensively. And so I think I'm more in favor of trying those
Okay.
things that we can, because, yeah, and because I'm just not convinced that even if MMA were to support this at 50% or some other percentage. Right now, I just am not convinced
So
that
let's-
I would support this at town meeting to say, I think the
Yeah.
town should spend this.
Yeah, so what about, what could you say in the letter, would MMA be willing to share in, let's just say we were gonna do speed tables,
Mhm.
4 speed tables, and
Mhm.
I think the biggest problem here for me is,
They're not on this road, they're down there.
Yeah,
I think
uh,
the Water Street.
Engines,
yeah,
engines, but
yeah.
that's a noise ordinance thing, not a traffic. ordinance.
no,
That's not speed.
but I think the speeding is, I think that'll have to do.
I think Dan's paying somebody like he's going, cue the loud truck, cue the loud truck, I'm speaking again. You're not getting it, cue the loud truck.
Amy disagreed with me. Open up the mouth or.
Let's go back to apple trees.
No, but let's just say each speed table costs $5,000.
Yeah.
I'm picking a high number.
Yeah.
So let's say we wanna have 6 of them around town.
Yeah.
We're looking at $24,000.
Right.
Would MMA kick in 12 and the town kicks in 12? Or let's just say we're gonna do the lettering on the striping. Okay, I mean, Derek, from what you said last week, it could be $10,000-$20,000, like all the lettering, right? All the.
Yeah, I think it's about $150 or so, and I think we measured it out to be like 10,000 or 12,000.
So that's, we're 15
lane
grand in a
miles
microsecond.
or whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, I
It's
guess
just
the
the
letter would
striping.
be that we're really looking at ways to deal with traffic calming. Some of them will cost money. Would you be willing to share in the expense?
Yeah, I think I'd be comfortable with that, because I think it shows that it gives them an opportunity to be part of the solution and part of the discussion. I
Yeah.
think there also needs to be a lot more, there's more opportunity to increase messaging
Yes.
and educational awareness. And, you know, they've had a program going on all day today, about distracted driving, and they've got, you know, students and others taught, or they were a little while ago, giving presentations to students at the academy. And they have, as we learned, you know, last semester, Lydia Lancina and the Student Initiative for the Shuttle.
No, totally.
So, you know, successful. So we see student-run initiatives, which I think are great. So I think all these little bits and pieces
Totally.
that don't have to cost a lot of money, but show a community approach. So it's not just all MMA's issue or expense, or that, you know, that. town
And Amy, I
residents
don't want you to
are
think, I'm not trying to
No,
pick,
no.
I'm not trying to pick an MA, because I know that I know that there are people, I see them in the summer
Oh,
and.
yeah, no, for
And,
sure.
you know, like, you know, but, you know, I just want it to be a
Absolutely,
community-wide.
no, I agree
Yes.
completely,
Completely.
I agree completely, no, and I don't see you as
Good.
doing that at all, no.
And I
think it's
see
great.
the striping as just, I think the striping will just help all of us, just like.
Yep.
Yes, we won't drive down the street anymore because we can't, so but it will help, people have to pay attention, and I really liked when he brought up that whole.
I mean, and just one other piece of it, I mean, I worry so much about kids starting out between cars on Perkins Street, when Perkins Street is just loaded with cars.
It is.
And, you know, there are now multiple families with little kids that are there in the summer. And, you know, a kid's gonna kick a ball out, and there is no chance on Perkins Street.
Right, it's already very narrow.
It's already very narrow, so I mean,
The side
you know,
yard.
I mean, before the summer comes up, I wanna bring up parking on Perkins.
No,
Right, that could be certainly another.
I think we
another
need to
topic.
send them a letter. to
Yes.
those who live, and remind them that they can only park on one side and all of those kinds of things. I mean.
Yeah, but I think number one, use your parking spaces.
Yes, use your.
Number one, if you have a driveway, we expect you to use it.
Absolutely.
So
Oh, he's got, I can see it.
You
It's a
sending
Derek,
a
it's a
letter?
Derek moment.
sending a letter, well, actually, so we're going to just try striping this year, not any raised little tables, or what are we looking
I
at?
don't know that we've made a
We
decision.
haven't made a
Alright.
I don't
decision,
think
we
so.
were just going.
Alright.
sort of-
Can you
Right.
ask your contact at DOT, if we were to look at speed tables?
Yeah,
What, should they be 5 feet, should they be 3 feet?
Well-
Should they be 3 inches high, should they be 2 inches high?
I-
Like what is the most effective, and then we can, then once we know that, we could say, okay, let's cost one out and see what it's actually gonna cost.
because, you know, that's the thing, I was gonna show you on the thing, I don't know if you guys have taken me up on the thing. And you can't see it that well here, but like in Bangor on Howard Street across from EMMC or whatever they call themselves now. I call them EMMC, so right here on the thing, you can see.
Oh, I didn't realize it.
This is a raised table, you have to slow down for it, doesn't look that much as me, it's concrete, I believe that they did. But, so that's one of the things, because that was a shortcut to the mall, back when the mall was a thing. Now, not as big of a deal, cause the mall's kind of dead, I guess it's a road to the strip malls out there. But then you get up further, and of course, that's when you approach the other one, which is
Oh, that's
talking
the
about
one I'm
apple
talking
trees,
about.
right?
That's the one you were talking about.
Put an apple tree right in the middle of there, right? Maybe a couple, maybe a pear tree too.
As you drive by, you just take your hand.
Right, you can actually grab a pear or whatever on your way. See, you're thinking like the drive-through mentality right there, that's genius.
Would be killed as they run across the 50 apple.
Right, exactly, but anyway, so that's the other traffic calming they use, and like I said, I have admittedly tried to see if I can't NASCAR around the chicane a little bit, but normally it's not any faster than like 25, 30 miles an hour, you know, it's just enough for you to wanna hit your brakes. And it's more now that there's some, I don't know if they purposely planted that or if that's just weeds that have grown up over the years, by the looks of it, looks like it's just weeds, I don't know. Probably all the invasives that we wanna get rid of. Throw a little bit of Japanese
Yeah,
knotweed in there, and
I
it'll
don't
be
know.
everything we need.
I don't know if that was wide enough to do that.
I don't, well, that's the thing, you look at it, I would have to measure it between the poles there to find out, because I got the sidewalks, so I'm not sure.
Well, right, and you have to also keep, it depends on where something like that would go,
Right.
because you have to think about the commercial traffic
Right.
that comes through Castine.
If I remember correctly, when
We had
you're.
one of those at the bottom of Terrapin Street.
What's that?
We had one at the bottom of Terrapin Street.
Oh, yeah, a little island type thing at the middle.
Right, in a little
And
town.
we took it out.
Right,
And
and
that's,
yeah.
that's because my moving truck took out the wall of the Trinitarian Episcopal Church and it came down there, but anyway, I won't talk about that.
So, I have a question about the speed tables, I think, because I think I wasn't able to be at the DOT presentation, with some conflict that day, but are they able to stay out in the winter for plows? Can plows go over something like that?
Well, that's
Or you
permanent, so
design
that's
one that they
actually
can?
there.
Yeah.
So it's just pavement or whatever that you kind of drive
Yeah.
up over and then
Yeah.
it's flat and then you go
The
back
reason
down.
the reason I like steep speed tables is speed bumps. The speed bumps, you know, like, if you're not paying attention. And you hit the speed bump, you can really damage your car. A speed table, okay, go up. And then you get the jolt and then you got a minute to recover with a speed, like if you go down the back shore. I mean, that's like, you know, that's why I was asking, how high should they be?
Right.
You know, how, if we're gonna have a speed table, how wide should it be? Like, really get the information, what is most effective, and then, you know, I agree, we strike first. Take a few months researching the speed tables. Do one or two on Battle Avenue, see if it's
Yeah.
effective, and then if we like it, we can move forward.
I will say Bangor's got on Outer Hammond Street, you know, like going out towards the old Bangor drive-in area. They're actually, I don't know what's going on with it, but it looks like the road has risen up on both sides, but I call it a reverse speed table and there's big, oh my God, a depth. I didn't see it to the last minute. And I saw the scuff marks where everybody's bottoming out and I'm like, that's not gonna be good for my aluminum oil. So I just about locked it up. First time I had my truck's back end come around on me. Cause oh God, and then I went over and I'm like, thank goodness, but on the way back, I also didn't see it because the reflectivity on the barrels that put on the side that you should see. So I'm just cruising at like 45 and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there it is again, that I was able to slow down. But that time I thought I heard a little bit of the skid plate on the bottom of a plastic thing almost scuffed a little bit on that side. But I was like, I'm like, yeah, you want to slow down, just do those ones there.
Do the
Right.
towards speed bumps.
Right, and I actually have had, Dan, just so you know, I've had like culverts like that, like we put in, and normally it's the road that comes up. The culvert generally doesn't move, but I've actually left, of course, what happens is. So the frost starts coming out, so it kind of gets underneath the culvert, and the culvert creates a bubble there. I've actually kept those in sometimes as speed bumps on certain roads, because I'm like, oh. People go, oh, well, the culverts come up. I'm like, right, and everybody slows down for it, like a speed bump.
But given that it looks like we're gonna do something, you know. Should we build, I know we talked about putting some money in the budget for this. It seems to me that we're, you know, just the lines, we're looking at 15 grand. Okay, so I think, I mean, we're probably looking, I mean, just to pad it a little bit, we're probably looking at $20,000 or $25,000. Just, I'd rather have a little bit of extra money in there if we decided we want to do something else.
Yeah.
We have it.
I agree, I think we should put some more money in the budget because that way we don't have to go back to contingency.
Exactly,
I
exactly,
think that's a good idea, and I was gonna ask really quick. MMA did have a thing, didn't he call it Didn't you say Castine is a no wake zone or something? Wasn't there some?
That was Craig, that was,
President Paul.
Jared.
President Paul
Have no wakes on.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and I don't know how that went over, but I'm sure we can come up with something that the town and the academy approves of.
no, we could come, we could have a contest. We could say, come up with a slogan and,
Ball some prize in the end or something.
you know what, I'm sure if I said to Matt and George, would you be willing to give dinner for two to somebody who came up with a cool, say, they would do it in a heartbeat.
Okay, we'll have a
That'd be fun.
contest for our safety slogan. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
All right.
Gazebo?
Gazebo. So Derek, we have to build a gazebo, right? Because
Well,
FEMA said we have to build back.
we have a gazebo, right, they've given us some money for the gazebo.
But I actually have a thought about the gazebo, so we have to build a gazebo. No problem there.
Mhm.
But the gazebo does not provide much shade, it provides basically the size of this. Thanks for coming, Bobby,
I'm sorry, Lee.
it's okay.
This is great.
Okay. It's basically the size of this right here, that's the gazebo. Okay, I can't tell you how many times in the summer I've been down there, the gazebo's full of people. And you're outside in the sun and your ice cream's melting, you're thinking, oh, I wish I could be in the gazebo. Couldn't we come up with some compromise where we have the gazebo and then we have the wind cells that are attached to it, the sun cells? So you've got the gazebo, and on the gazebo, you put a couple steel anchors, you know, the stainless steel anchors. And then you put an anchor on the side of the dock, you know, and so you have your gazebo. And then you have an area the size of this room
That's got.
that's got shade. And that way, you know, the people that don't want change, they get the gazebo, and the people that do want change get more coverage.
I think, I like that. I think the idea, I think the thing about the gazebo is that the FEMA
No, I get it,
requires that we build it back out west.
that's okay.
They're pretty much similar.
Don't get to build back better. Sean and I had that argument many times with them while they were here. But what if we, no, build it back exactly how it is? It's like,
But if you look at the end of the gazebo, no, but if you look at the gazebo, if the gazebo is here. You have this much, let's say the dock is here. The gazebo is here, you probably have 15 feet, 18 feet, what do you think from the, okay, so even if this whole area. Had the sunshade, you're talking about a post here, 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 a post there. The thing goes up, okay, in the fall, take it all down, fold it up, it's good for 5 or 10 years.
we can try it for a year and see how it goes, and if we get a lot of great feedback, we keep it, and if we get negative feedback, we discuss it.
Yeah.
But because I think right now we have picnic tables out there that have umbrellas.
The umbrellas blow, they break and they blow away, and the umbrellas were a problem, they kept replacing them last year.
Oh, were there?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure out, do we need to have some more like town input on this kind of
We had
decision?
these outdoor cafe spaces,
Mhm.
and what they do make is they make these, they're more expensive than wind cells. It's like a very heavy base,
Yeah,
and it's got a crank or a motor. And it opens up, it's kind of like, it almost looks like dinosauric, it's like this thing comes up and then the thing opens up, and it's got this big, you know, it covers, you know, 20 by 20, you know, it's got this big thing, but those. With our wind here and, you know, and the weather, I just,
I like it, I personally love the idea of the wind cells, and I would just do it, but I think, I like it, you're right, we probably should have it as a listening session. And have people come and get their.
or if it was possible to have any kind of schematic or design of a sketch so people could
Yeah.
visualize. you
it's
know,
what
it
it's what Dennis had before the storm.
Yeah, it's,
But right when Max was running Dennis, he put that big wind cell, the sun cell up, so the whole outer deck was covered.
Well, I think I've forgotten
We can
about
get
that.
some.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, something like that.
Well, all I care about is getting it there and somebody to design it, so I can have
Right.
us build it, which will mean whoever designs it needs to figure it out. One of the things that was talked about was maybe having the eaves on the outside go
Yeah.
over further, even
Right.
though when it's raining, the wind's blowing
But if we're
sideways,
gonna have
it's trying
someone
to
design
keep
it,
it
and we want
dry,
it
but
built for
it's
this
the same
season,
thing.
like, we gotta move like tomorrow.
Right, well, that's why I'm thinking that, I don't know if we need a total listening session or we just put it on the next
Thank you,
agenda.
every one of you. Thank
Brooke,
you.
I just have a question.
I'm glad I could
How many
entertain
years
you
have you been
today.
coming to select board meetings?
I told somebody the other day I was a select board junkie.
No, but how many years have you been coming to select board meetings?
Oh, 10, if not more.
Okay,
I have a
do we
question.
win the award for the most fun of any select board?
There were never work sessions.
Yeah.
There were never.
How did they get any work done?
I have a question for you, Brooke.
love
This will tell me
select
if you're really a select board junkie or not. Do you ever go home and watch reruns of our select board meetings? No. You're like, oh, you gotta tune into this one. This is a good episode. No? Alright, when you get to that point, you're a select board meeting junkie.
I wanna know how many sweaters Brooke has. We should have whoever has the sweaters to show up, and these are the board of select board sweaters.
See you later.
Okay, so Derek, what do you need?
So I would just say, let's put it on the next just regular board agenda and just take public input there.
But I guess, from a practical point of view, if we had the
It
public,
needs to be movable, that's the one thing we've already talked about, they're gonna let me do it with skids on it, they don't care about that
We,
portion of it.
we can start the next meeting with
Yes.
with 15 minutes of public input
Alright,
about that.
Yeah.
You wanna do that?
you know, and I don't even know if if you wanna call it, and I would do it so people know. Town dock, we'll call it, I don't know, like. What town dock, what it looks like, what else do we wanna know?
Do we want? wind
What it
sounds?
looks like,
What do we want the gazebo to?
the thing is that people,
whatever. Well, not really, well, we do, but we don't, cause we're going to change it somewhat.
But it has to be pretty much. the
you're building
same
the gazebo.
size.
Listen, I don't think FEMA's gonna come and say,
It's gonna
the
be
old
a
gazebo was 12 by
rectangle.
12.
It could
And
be
this one's 50
higher,
by 50.
cause the roof, if you're gonna overhang, it's gotta be higher. Otherwise, they're gonna whack their heads on it, so they gotta go up. Well, if that's the case, right?
Would-
And
yeah.
extend it out, it needs to be removable so we can pull it off. During like hurricanes are coming or every winter, so we can protect it from
We've had
future
benches
damage.
past- we have benches inside, could we have, again, benches outside, but can they be covered by the roof, like, because.
Well,
outside
right, if you,
environment.
well, right, so you could have the roof extended, whatever people, that's what I wanna know, what's it gonna be? And then, and who's gonna design it? The guys can put it together, I think, and
Well,
I think having it from discussions before.
offered to.
Alright, well,
Oh, great.
so we get input, alright,
Okay.
but I want it to be able to be built in pieces, okay?
Okay.
So they can bring and put it together
They can take
there.
it apart in sections to take.
Well, I don't care about, no, I don't care after it's there, cause if I need it on, I don't know, Teflon skids or something. To just slide off or whatever it is.
Listen,
I
if
think,
it
I
just-
think it also needs to be somehow anchored too, because I don't want just a windstorm to come up and all of a sudden it starts drifting while people are there. So it's gotta be safe, so that, but no, they don't have a lot of room to build stuff in right now. Because there's a plow truck in the middle of the garage, so they can't build a whole gazebo inside right now. So that's what I'm saying, they can
Yeah,
build
oh,
it
I
in
see.
pieces or whatever, that can then be put
Okay.
together and then finished on site.
So we'll do from 4 to 4:15 next Monday, we'll have a listening session on what people
Okay.
have input about the gazebo and the dock eating area.
And I forget what I said I had for money, do you remember? I think I put it in something, I just
I'll look.
did that.
Are we
paper.
required to do any kind of RFP for this? to
No,
go out
there's no,
to-
because,
It's just
Okay.
no, because we, I don't think they gave us money for like.
But we're
To
gonna
that
have our,
point.
we're gonna have our cards filled.
Right, well, right, ideally, if it's easy enough, I'm thinking it's a square with framing, that's why I said you're gonna have to. Put it together also so they know what they're building too.
So has Mark designed things for, I don't know about his professional
He's
past.
an architect,
Okay.
so that's kind of his, but I mean, and I don't know if he's, you know, I mean, there are other people we could ask.
Say,
to
yeah,
design
and we have
it.
other
Yeah,
architects in
we
town
have
too,
other-
right?
If it's free, that's
Yeah,
always
I
good.
know.
No, absolutely, right, but we could maybe invite
Right.
a couple of proposals by a certain deadline, say, it's not to be compensated. for.
Volunteer plans, right, right.
Absolutely. We could
right.
say, hey, by April, I don't know, 15, for example.
So no, that's.
Invite-
yeah.
It might
And
be
these
up
are-
by
these are the
September then.
Criteria that we, these are the criteria we would like to see in a proposal. Now, the idea of maybe wind sails, what would that look like?
Right, right.
These are the things.
No, I think that's good. I have to have this, unless I ask for an extension by September 15th. Is the deadline. I'd like to get it before, but we have till, I think, then to get most of our stuff done.
Yeah,
So, you know, there's potential there.
but we could, yeah, but if we had some little designs submitted, we could make a decision or have a
Or
little.
like a sketch.
I think we could make shorter order of this if we had,
Okay.
yeah.
But that's the thing, I wanna get public input, what they're going to
Okay,
do.
so we'll get public input
Right.
and then we can send out a little thing and say, we will be accepting free proposals.
Right,
Yep.
no,
Okay,
no,
I
no,
like
and
that.
then
That'll be great.
we get none, and we get.
What is the
So,
golf course
so the
like?
last thing on the golf course is, I was contacted by a really lovely gentleman who's writing a book about Maine golf
Oh,
courses,
that's fine.
and Castine has a chapter.
Yeah.
And
Cause it's a Willie Parks course.
yeah, and so Castine has a whole chapter and he's already spoken a great deal with the golf club leadership. And he just wanted to talk to me a little bit about the town and water conservation and things like he's trying to, you know, really focus in on what makes Castine special or different or whatever. So I just wanted everybody to know in case something comes up that he's writing this book.
Is
He's
it-
going to send a draft
Oh, cool.
for us to look, of our chapter, for us to look over before he
And
publishes.
did you see that the pond is so full?
I just,
that
it
the
looks like it's gonna
waterfall, that the-
overflow.
The overflow is working. I mean, there must be 100,000 gallons of water.
With all the snow melting.
Yeah, I saw it coming up after all the rain and snow, I was like, that thing's gonna overflow.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
No, it was.
I will make a motion that we enter into executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA Chapter 13, Section 456A.
5:56.
Thank you so much for setting up the Dropbox.
Yeah, hold on a second, I haven't cut off the meeting yet. Have a good night, everybody at home.